turn our attention to water. If you follow water issues here in New Mexico, you've certainly heard of John Fleck. He was a reporter at the Albuquerque Journal for years, and when John Fleck set out to write a book about the Colorado River, he found some surprising things. Our correspondent Laura Paskus sat down recently with John Fleck to talk about the past and future of the Colorado River and his book, Water is for Fighting Over, and the Other Myths About Water in the West.
I'm here today with John Fleck, former journalist and director of the University of New Mexico Water Resources Program. We're going to be talking about his book that came out last year, Water is for Fighting Over, and Other Myths About Water in the West. Hi, John. Thanks for being here today.
It's so nice of you to have me.
Thanks. So when your book, Water is for Fighting Over, came out last year, a lot of people praised its optimistic message. In the book, you write a lot about how even when there are really difficult water disputes, you found that people can move towards solutions through informal conversations and cooperation rather than litigation and conflict. And that's not really the narrative that we're used to in the West. So can you talk about why you think sort of your take on things is the right one?
One of the things that I expected when I launched this project many years ago, it's a project that went on in fits and starts for a long time, was that sort of conflict and problems around scarcity that ultimately kind of doomed us here in the West, that we had overbuilt the cities and the farms and that we were sort of headed for a crash. It's sort of the old Cadillac Desert narrative. And that's what I expected I was going to write a book about when I started to set out to write a book about water in the West. And as I looked more closely, waiting for and watching for and trying to describe the conflicts and the crash, what I found instead was this sort of remarkable adaptability that people, when push came to shove, they figured out how to use less water and collaborate and cooperate and share their water instead of fighting over it. And it took me a long time to adjust my thinking, to get out of that old narrative. You know, we get trapped in our narratives. It took me a long time to realize that this thing that I was looking for, that I wanted to write about, was the wrong thing, and that in fact it was this narrative, this positive narrative, this optimistic narrative of people figuring out how to get by with less water was really an important story.
Right. So a lot of the book focuses on the Colorado River and conflicts between Arizona and California through the 20th century and up until a few years ago. Can you talk a little bit about where New Mexico fits into all of this?
So I originally got started on the book back in 2008 when Albuquerque first started using its San Juan Chama drinking water to supply municipal needs. And this is water that comes from the Colorado River Basin, this series of tunnels that move it across the Continental Divide. And I was interested in the question of what that meant for Albuquerque, now that we were connected to this much broader Colorado River Basin. And so it's really important for us here on the east side of the Continental Divide to recognize that through this transbasin diversion, which supplies Albuquerque's water supply and water for Santa Fe and for the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and you know, Pueblo communities here in New Mexico, that we're connected to this much broader water governance, watershed, we built this sort of giant artificial watershed that spreads from here to Southern California and up to Denver. We're all now using this water, figuring out how to share it together. So it's important that sort of Albuquerque understand that we are connected with this broader community of water users all the way across the western United States.
So another really important thing that happened since your book came out is Donald Trump was elected president. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts on how the new administration might affect water management on the Colorado River.
One of the most important things that I'm watching right now and that I'm concerned about is the change in our relationship with Mexico. You know, we talk about the 7 states of the Colorado River Basin, but that's 7 states in the United States. There's another 2 in Mexico, and this river crosses out of the Arizona-California border into Sonora and Baja and supplies water in Mexico too, and it's a shared river. There's a long history of conflict between the United States and Mexico over that river that goes back, half a century or more. In the last 10 years or so, there's been evolved a much more collaborative, cooperative framework for managing the river. And this is one of the things I talk about a lot in the book. There was an agreement signed between the 2 nations that allowed water to be returned to the Colorado River Delta, which is dry now and has no water because we've taken all the water out of it. we've got an agreement with the Mexican government to share shortages when there's a shortage on the river. Mexico takes the shortage as well as Arizona, Nevada, and California, and the other states of the Colorado River Basin. That's a really important relationship. We're on the brink of a new negotiated agreement that would extend that relationship. It's not clear what's going to happen. There is a fear, and this is especially true on the Mexican side of the border, that this reset in the U.S.-Mexico relationship, this cooperative, collaborative relationship is going to blow up because of these larger issues of NAFTA and trade and immigration and the border wall, that will get in the way of this eminently reasonable sharing agreement that's in everybody's best interests. And so that's the thing that I'm most concerned about as I watch the change in administration. That's the most obvious thing. The rest of it is a lot of issues that, just like so many issues right now in our national governance, we just don't know. It's a very unpredictable governance regime out of the federal government right now. We just don't know what's going to happen.
Right. So your research mostly focused on the Colorado River and Arizona and California, but you were a reporter here in New Mexico for decades at the Albuquerque Journal. And one of the things I really found interesting in your book is you wrote about how understanding water in Arizona means starting with cotton. I was wondering if you could briefly explain what you mean by that, and then help us understand, what do we need, if we want to understand water in New Mexico, what do we need to start with here?
Oh, this is a great question. So in Arizona, water management grew up around the problem of supplying enough irrigation water for these huge cotton farms, especially during the 1940s and 50s in the post-war era. Arizona was a cotton empire. And so the water systems were built and developed around providing irrigation water for cotton farming. And then modern Arizona has sort of evolved from that. We're not growing a whole lot of cotton anymore in Arizona. We have suburbs in the greater Phoenix area where cotton once was grown, and that evolution from cotton to suburb is a really important thing to understand water in Arizona. Here in New Mexico, we started at a much smaller scale, but it started with agriculture. So we started with Pueblo communities irrigating and the Osage communities irrigating and the ditch communities along the middle Rio Grande diverting water out, and that then evolved into this urban water system that we have today in a kind of unhappy relationship for a long time. And so for a long time, the long-term plan for meeting Albuquerque's needs was to buy up water rights from farmland, shift that water out of agriculture into municipal use. And I think that was a source of real conflict between rural and urban cultures, between the Native American and Old Hispanic cultures and the modern post-World War II Albuquerque. We're seeing kind of an evolution away from that right now. The Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority, the big municipal water utility, announced last year in its new long-range water management strategy that it thinks it has its house in order and doesn't really need to be buying up agricultural water rights anymore. So understanding where that came from, we were an agricultural community turning into a city, and how we manage that relationship going forward is really critical. And you see this all across the West, this sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes comfortable relationship between the old farming cultures that really developed the West and the cities that are displacing them over time.
Right. So moving forward, right now, what do you think the most important water issue in New Mexico is?
I think we need to be very mindful of and concerned about the potential impact of climate change on our water supplies, and really be thinking about how we're going to adapt going forward. You know, all the data suggests that we're likely to see a reduction in stream flows in our rivers. Our dependence on groundwater becomes more important, and so our ability now, when we have kind of enough water right now, to manage our water supplies, to continue conserving in a way that preserves the aquifer so that it's there as a long-term reserve, you know, in those sustained droughts that are, you know, likely to be something that we face in the future, is a really, really important thing. I think we need to also think more carefully about the relationship between our urban areas and our rural areas and how we manage water. I think that, you know, Albuquerque's success in conservation, I mean, Albuquerque's conservation success is a remarkable, conservation is happening all around the West. We're probably the best at it, our per capita water use is just about half what it was 20 years ago, which is pretty remarkable in a modern industrial world to have the use of a resource drop that much. That's pretty amazing. That gives us the flexibility to rethink our relationship with the rural and urban communities about how we use water, how we share water, how we integrate the two kinds of communities that are around us here.
Well, John Fleck, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for